sure I wasn't able to kind of make decisions and stand by them. I had a really deep sense of sort of imposter syndrome. My confidence sort of plummeted. I was kind of questioning myself, things that I was doing.
Because the moment I was like, no, I'm not going on payroll, I need to invoice. They were like, all right, let's add. I had my child at 16. So I was more like, no, I can't do that. They're like, Charles, why is everything wrong with you? You're holding a baby and holding an infant.
And I spent the money on the offices and we were getting it all kitted out and we had a launch and everything. And literally within 4 weeks, the turnover plummeted. And I kept thinking next month it'll be better and started plowing in money to keep the business going, to keep the staff on.
I didn't really have that much money. I had my savings, but I don't come from a family of privilege. I come from a West Coast family. So I had all of these kind of barriers that at the time I didn't realize were barriers. I just got on with it and just moved. I moved without thinking. I had an idea.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of She's the Boss Female Entrepreneur Stories, where I'm joined by phenomenal women from all around the world who run their own businesses, who are entrepreneurial, who are really making waves in the business space. If you haven't already done so, make sure that you click that subscribe and follow button to make sure that you're the first to know when I release a new video. And if you're not already following me on social media, get following. On Instagram, I am at She's the Boss UK. On Facebook, Daniela Genus, She's the Boss. I'm also on LinkedIn, Daniela Genus, and I also have a She's the Boss international page on LinkedIn. So make sure you get following on there. And Twitter, at She's the Boss INTL. And I've also recently launched my new website, so please go and check that out, she'sthebossintl.com. I'd love to hear your feedback. Today, I'm really excited because I am joined by the Islandpreneur, the founder of Produce Wealth Revolution Agency, and the just general badass entrepreneur that is Ife Badejo. Ife, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I think that you're doing such an amazing job and you're making some real boss moves. So I'm very excited to talk to you today.
Thanks so much. So obviously a multifaceted entrepreneur. Tell us about your journey. Start right at the beginning. How did you become an entrepreneur? What inspired you? What motivated you? And what were the first steps that you took on your entrepreneurial journey?
I'll go way back. I was about 9 years old. There's a dispute in my family, whether I was 7, 8, or 9, but in that family of age. And my father at the time was the editor-in-chief of the largest newspaper on the island. And their business model was that they would give individuals the newspapers and they would sell it and they would earn 100% commission on the sales of the newspapers. And then they would monetize through ads in the newspaper. So that was their business model. And being at that age, my brother's about 2 years younger than I am. And so both my parents got tired of hearing, mommy and daddy, I need this, mommy and daddy, I need that. They figured this is the perfect age to get you some work ethic. And so they put us to work and gave us newspapers to sell through the summer. And we could do whatever we wanted with the money that we earned. It was 100% ours. And at the time, I was making a name for myself already on the island with singing. I no longer sing the way that I used to, but at the age I was doing song festivals and things like that. And I did not want to be on the side of the street, on the main street of the capital city in the hot sun selling newspapers. I didn't want to do that. That was not my thing. So after 1 or 2 tries, I'm like, this is so not for me. I saw how my brother would go down, sell the newspapers, and they were gone like hot bread because he was much smaller, he was much younger, he was so cute, he'd look up and they were sold. And so I cut a deal with my brother, and at that time I was learning fractions. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give you a quarter of the money. And he was like, no, I want half of the money. And he's much fiercer of a negotiator than I am. So he got 50% of my commission, and I got 50% of the money to do nothing, just sit in the office and chill and go up and down the street. And when I saw that, when I got a taste of that, I was like, wait, hold on. Life doesn't have to be as hard as it looks. Really. And so I enjoyed that time. I learned some valuable lessons. And my trajectory was all over the place, right? It's never a straight line. It's always moving forward and some curveballs and things of that nature. So fast forward to being 18, I got certified as a youth entrepreneurship trainer in Miami. And I was so blown away to have this young gentleman, 8 years old, walk into the room on the final day of the certification program. He has on a suit. He walks in with two young ladies who have uniform. He shows a 30-second advert for his lemonade stand that he wants to franchise out in the entire southeast of the United States of America. And I was blown away. He needed $1,000 and walked away with 10. And I said, okay, that's what I want to do. So not only do I want to be an entrepreneur and have the level of freedom, but I also want to empower others to do the same. And so that has led me on a very dynamic trajectory, doing all kinds of things. And now we're here with one of my favorite things in the world, which is Islandpreneur. And my business has now been able to impact thousands on the island and around the world through the different things that we do.
What a story. I love that. And I love that you're able to pinpoint that point in your childhood, because it's interesting. I ask people this question all the time, and not everybody is able to remember in such detail. I remember, because I remember negotiating with my dad to wash his car and getting paid for that, and realizing, oh, this is quite easy. I can do this and get paid. Then also negotiating with kids at school to braid their hair. So I can always look back. So I love when other people can do the same. I love that. So yeah, you kind of stopped at the Islandpreneur part. Tell us about the work that you do now and how you've made that impact on all of these different people.
So I'll track back just a little bit. Produce Wealth Revolution Agency is our business. I'm founder and chief experience officer, and we are an impact enterprise focused on entrepreneurship and innovation development to create socioeconomic change on small islands. And so we've done a variety of different programs. We had a physical incubator. We ended that before COVID, thank God, because that would have been a different kind of a business discussion. And so we do entrepreneurship training. We also do projects. So we have a project right now with Red Cross where we created and we train their beneficiaries to empower them to become more entrepreneurial and start their businesses. And so we've done quite a few cool, amazing projects with a variety of people. We also do corporate training so that people are becoming more innovative and becoming more creative as well, right? So there's the entrepreneurship and the entrepreneurship. In that entire process, I recognize that as someone who's always studying entrepreneurship on a whole, as an entrepreneur, I couldn't land where I wanted to land. Like the information was either so American, right? When you want to go deep, or it was so European, or it was so African, it was so Asian. And I wanted to find something that spoke to me, that was more island, that came with my own flair. We've gone through severe hurricanes on the islands. The last one in 2017, Hurricane Irma, which was a category 5+. And if you Google it, it will say Armageddon because it was the worst to hit this region. So one day I posted on Facebook, Confessions of an Islandpreneur, because there were just certain things that I was like, only on islands would I have to deal with this. And that went so viral. And I realized after that it was not just Caribbean people that were living on islands. UK people identified to the islands. People from New Zealand, from the East. It just became this thing. And so last year we hosted a live event virtually. We had 650 people registered for our first event. We had more than 25 global leaders. We had people like Jeff Hoffman, who's the co-founder of Priceline, as one of our keynotes. Leslie Samuel, who's from the soil, who's a major social media figure and coach. And so we decided this year, okay, we're gonna double down on Islandpreneur and just take it to the next level. So we have a network, we have merchandise, we have this signature events, and we're even coming out with a podcast, partially inspired by you and other wonderful podcasters that are doing amazing work. So yes, Islandpreneur is about not just showcasing the amazing resilience, innovation, creativity that's on the islands, but also making sure that we get the kind of right information to go global and have a good impact on the global stage.
I love that. And I love that you haven't been restricted by the fact that you're on an island. You've actually said, okay, we're on an island. This is what we do well. And how do we connect outward? I think that really is an example of your entrepreneurial spirit. And I love that. What would you say is the main difference of being an island entrepreneur as opposed to a mainlander entrepreneur? What are some of the challenges that you think are very specific to being an entrepreneur on an island?
I think the challenges and some of the opportunities are so interlinked. So I'm just going to kind of give the coin and then give the two sides of the coin, right? One, we're small. And so being small means that we have access to the top fairly quickly. Like some of the members of parliament are friends of mine that I went to school with, and I can bump into them and I have their direct number. If I was living in the Netherlands, I would not have direct access to a minister or a member of parliament. That is for sure. And so that is one that is a benefit, but the disadvantage, I guess, or the challenge rather, is that because we're so small, it's not always easy to convince people that we are big, that we have wonderful big ideas and that we can do bigger things, because we're trapped sometimes in a smaller dynamic, in a smaller paradigm. Another thing that makes us very unique is that we have to deal with climate change in a whole nother way than other people. Like I said, I have been through more than 15 hurricanes in my lifetime, 2 of them completely devastating, 2 of them displaced me completely. 2 of them, the last one had me bouncing around for 6 months in 6 different locations. After that, we had to throw out all of our beds, we had no roof. I mean, it was bad. But the advantage of that is that we're super resilient because we just know how to pull up the sleeves and get to work even when there's no roof over my head. True story, I had to leave a location, did not know where my next location would be. And as I'm packing up, I'm cutting the deal to become a project manager so that I could start my new business. Wow. That's how I started the PWR Agency. And so that's another one. And lastly, we're very sensitive to relationship. Everything is relationship. We know that we understand the nuances of relationship. We tend to read body language very quickly and things of that nature. And because of that, we may not always understand that that you can leverage that in a global sense. That people don't have the same level of sensitivity of relationship as we do. And so those are some of the things. I mean, there's many. There's about 10 things I could rattle off on, but those are some of the things that I think those are the coins and those are the two sides of the coin.
No, I like that. And it is important. Relationship management and relationship building is so integral to entrepreneurship and business growth. And for me, it's something that I struggle with. I always have great intentions, but then I continue to kind of foster a relationship. So I think there's so much things that we can learn from different people that can add to our entrepreneurial kind of prowess and expertise. In terms of mentorship, has there been anyone on your journey that has really been kind of integral to your growth as an entrepreneur that you could look back and say, this was the advice that they gave me, or this was the role that they played? And have you been that, and I assume you would have, to other people? And how important do you think mentorship is for entrepreneurs? That's like 3 questions in here, sorry.
That's perfectly fine. I think mentorship is critical. I think mentorship is almost like oxygen to the entrepreneur and the entrepreneurial journey. because it is so emotionally, mentally, physically, financially taxing. This is not for the faint of heart. And so I think that mentorship is critical. I stand on the shoulders of those who have come alongside, those who have gone before, and I hope that my shoulders are broad enough for those who are coming after. To your question, we could spend the next 10 days talking about mentoring and who's many, but make it short and sweet. My mom, for sure, has been a mentor. She was a civil servant and she is a translator by trade. And so she decided business, and I working in it. All of us became a family business. My mom didn't have money for employees, so her children were free labor, okay? And I learned so much about that journey because at the time, so I was reading business books and I'm like, no, Mom, you're not doing it how the book says that you need to be doing it. And so trying to find the right kind of models to encourage success. But her ability to beat to her own drum and just pioneer is what has been amazing to me. My mom was the first Black person in her city when she went away to Belgium to study, and they threw eggs at her and all of that kind of thing. Like the things that you read about in a book, my mom lived through. My dad, similar. My dad beats to his own drum as well. And I remember for my first event, my first networking event, I wanted to quit. It was Tuesday. There were only 12 tickets sold. Money was on the line. I'm nervous. It's supposed to happen on a Saturday. And I called my dad like with tears. And my dad said, Ife, do not make a habit out of quitting. But Daddy, I don't know how much money I'm going to make. I don't have this. I don't have that. Do not make a habit out of quitting. If there's one person, act like there's 1,000 people. You'll figure out the money later. And so I've been blessed with my parents. I've spiritual mentors and friends. Ambassador Alicia Liverpool keeps me very close to my spiritual grounding and journey, because this is not just about the money. It's about having impact, and it's about making sure that you're empowering people and helping people go to the next level. And then Dr. Will, who is also another mentor of mine who I've seen grow his business, and I appreciate that. But like I said, I could talk for 10 days on all the different wonderful people, because I'm so inspired by life. Like I was in the gym this morning, and what my coach, my fitness coach said to me kind of struck a chord, and I was like, ooh, that's good. You know, like kind of. So mentorship is really important. And to your question about who I have mentored, I hope to have mentored several people. I feel like I have, but one person in particular that I have been very intentional about is my goddaughter. She's 12 years old. She's going to be 13. When I was 6 years old, I recognized that she really loves baking. And so I got her a baking set. And a couple of years later, she started Boulder Baking, which is her baking company. And she has now expanded to Boulder Lifestyle. She covers notebooks for her friends and things of that nature, but her core business is the baking business. She does amazing cupcakes and all of that good stuff. And so and I know partially her drive, her enthusiasm is when she sees Auntie Ife doing her stuff. And so I'm very proud of her and the influence I've had in her life.
That's beautiful. I really love to hear that. I'm a godparent, but you've kind of reminded me that I probably need to be a little bit more intentional with how I godparent, which is not that intentional at the moment. And I think what a beautiful legacy that you have been able to build with her. Yeah. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. She's sharp too. She's going to be a beast when she gets to the age. She's sharp.
I love that. What has been your proudest moment so far? I was going to ask previously what's been hard, but the idea of you kind of being homeless and dealing with the hurricane seems to be fairly big, difficult challenges that you've managed to overcome. But what is something that you look back and say, I'm really proud that I was able to do that?
I don't think I've reached my proudest moment yet, quite honestly, if I'm totally transparent. I am my biggest critic, and I'm still learning how to be my best friend. So I would say that my proudest moment is every day when I decide to do this again, that I don't quit, and that I continue, or when it looks like I'm gonna quit, that I take a break and I'm still able to come back and continue. And to your point about challenge and what would be my most challenging moment, yeah, the hurricanes were rough. That was tough. But it wasn't as tough as losing loved ones that happened last year or along the way. That has been tougher. There's no going back. Death is final. And last year, one of the toughest moments was we had this pitch competition, and a very dear friend of mine passed away suddenly during the pitch competition. And so every day I would have to get up and act like everything is okay and have my moments of breaking down, quite honestly. And trying to keep everybody else together as well in the process. So I guess that's also my most proud moment, that I was able to continue during that period. The last hurricane especially, I made a conscious decision that I'm going to thrive after and not just survive. And I think, quite honestly, that decision that I made helped me to fortify me to be able to handle the aftermath of it all. But when some things happen unexpected, you could see the hurricane coming. You could get information of the hurricane. But when you saw somebody a couple of days before and then you get a call that they have gone, that's a little bit different. That's harder to deal with.
Yeah, condolences. I think this kind of whole COVID thing has also had so many people kind of looking at how we value and how we communicate with people that we love much more deeply. I think before we could take for granted, and obviously death has always been like, it's not anything new, but I think we could kind of divorce ourselves from it, that actually if something's going to happen to someone, we're going to get noticed and we're going to know. And I think this whole kind of COVID thing has made people really stop and say, well, actually, we don't know, and maybe we should be a little bit more intentional with how we express how much we care about people. And I know for me, definitely, once we're outside of this, my laziness of, I can't bother to travel, I'm going to have to get over that because I've missed so many people. And the concept that those people could have been taken away during this period and I was being too lazy to visit is a really kind of real kind of and poignant point in my brain. So, yeah, I think we need to live better with people generally.
Yes. And the lesson from Yolanda's death that I'm taking with me, and I've lost other ones, but other ones, they had cancer or something like that. So you're kind of preparing yourself for it. This was so unexpected. And she was young, 36 years old and all of that. But from her death, I'm taking that I'm in the land of the living. And time is not guaranteed. And so now is the time, to your point, I'm being much more intentional of how I do things, who I want to connect, how I want to live my life, and things of that nature. And it's unfortunate that death is required sometimes, or a COVID-19 or a global pandemic is required sometimes for us to kind of take a stop and a beat and go like, but what's really happening? But that is also the beautiful part of this experience, I think. I think it's really an awesome moment for you to just be a human being and not just a human doing.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I love that. What a phrase. That was a fabulous phrase. And yeah, so true. It's so true. So going back to your business and your general entrepreneurial journey, how do you generate ideas, and how have you generated ideas for kind of some of the things that you've done? How do you practice innovate? Because obviously you do stuff around innovation. How do you practice innovation within your business?
I get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I always ask and challenge the status quo. Does it have to be that way? Who says so? Why can't we do it differently? Innovation in one word is different. So the first point of that is that I have, after a very long personal and professional journey, I've accepted my difference. I'm an island girl, totally. I'm also a Niger girl, totally, because of my father's connection and that connection. I am creative. I would put words together in a strange way, and people would be like, "Well, how did you come up with that? What? How did you do that?" And before I'd be like, "That's so weird," and now I'm like, "No, that is part of your difference." And so, one, embracing your difference, your quirks, your weaknesses, your strengths, is a really good way of staying innovative, because then you tap into your own difference. You tap into your own innovative self. And then from that perspective, challenge the status quo. It doesn't have to be in a disrespectful manner either. It's just, okay, well, we have Carnival in St. Martin. Our Carnival has been canceled due to the COVID. My first question was, why couldn't it have been a virtual carnival? Why couldn't it have been a drive-in concert? Why couldn't it have been a auto parade with cars? Like, you know what I mean? So I think we get so boxed into what is and what was, and we don't often ask what could be. And that is where innovation is. And then, like I said, I embrace, I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. Change and doing things differently does not scare me as much. And actually, I look to be scared. When I wanted to put this out, I was scared crapless. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. Who understands Islandpreneur? And being willing to test and being okay with, I think culturally, all over the world, there's this fear of failure because everything seems to be picture perfect. All the Instagram pictures are picture perfect. You know, that one Instagram took like 100 takes, and all the Facebook wording is awesome. And everybody has become these like master marketeers. And as a marketeer, I'm like, yes, awesome, go there. But there is something about being totally transparent and authentic that the world needs. And that means showing the parts that you may not necessarily want to show, showing the parts that are not that pretty, showing the parts that, and it's tough to be that level of transparent. I'm still learning, but I had to last year call up my stakeholders and say, listen, guys, I need a mental health break, and I will be back, but I need a mental health break. And just kind of express that. And people understood it's authenticity and transparency is a powerful thing. And the more you are transparent and authentic in a way that respects everybody's space, that is not manipulative, then you'd be surprised what kind of innovative ideas come through that.
I love that answer. I want to go from there. It's funny about what the last bit that you just said in an authentic and not manipulative way, because I think that there is also this movement of I'm going to be the most vulnerable to kind of manipulate audiences and making up vulnerability. And I've seen this a fair bit on social media, and people using vulnerability as a marketing technique as opposed to a means of connecting with their audiences. So yeah, I love that point. And I asked that question specifically because kind of one of my areas of expertise is around innovation. And I was teaching a session to running a program last week around innovation. And it was like, as I was delivering, I was like, well, actually, how innovative are you being in your business right now? You're telling these businesses how to be innovative. What are you doing that's innovative? So it's kind of led me down this path of thinking about how I can be more innovative and practice more what I preach, which is why I thought it'd be interesting to ask you.
The challenge with people like us that are so innovative is that sometimes we get trapped into what was, because we broke the mold before, right? And being innovative is a continuous process. So it's how can I break it again and again and again and again? And then learning from that and putting in the systems and things that are necessary to replicate it effectively. I could have given a technical answer, but I find that the technicality of it doesn't really breed innovation. It goes back to, okay, this is what worked. So let's do that. That's why I changed. My philosophy is, if you're different, you're innovative, and embrace that difference and bring that difference to the table. And to your point, even those that are using vulnerability as a means to grow their business, right? Then you're not really trying to connect with people, you're trying to connect with their pocket. And then how innovative are you if you now use an emotional tactic to get to their pocket? If you connect with people the right way, the pocket is the byproduct. It will happen. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. So yeah, it's interesting too, because I've also noticed it and seen it, and I go like, that's one of the reasons I didn't want to be as authentic. And I'm like, I don't want to be one of those people manipulating out here. But I had to have an honest conversation with myself and be like, no, it's a requirement in this day and age. People want to know who you are. And it's unfair to expect them to share their lives and their pockets with you, and you're not willing to do the same.
Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely agree. It's funny. I did a Instagram live this morning talking about my meltdown yesterday, because, and I mentioned it before we came online, but again, as part of this, just being honest, and I was sharing it because I've spoken to so many, particularly moms, during this kind of lockdown period. And in the UK at the moment, we're in a full lockdown, schools are closed, so people have got their kids at home and trying to do business, and people are cracking up. Now, I've been very lucky that my daughter is partially being schooled, so I'm getting a little bit of respite, but it snowed. So she was at home on Monday and Tuesday and eating and eating and eating and wouldn't stop eating and clinging to me, and I wanted to do my work, and I've got work to do, and she's just there. And yesterday she went back to school, but the weight of it was still on me. And I pulled up to my drive and I was playing the radio and soca came on. And for a split second, I wanted to start dancing. And in my head, I could feel the sun and I was in Jamaica. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, but I'm not, and I can't be for who knows how long. And I literally opened my front door and burst into tears. And I shared that on my Instagram this morning. And I've had so many people messaging me saying I'm feeling exactly the same. And I think that is, and not to say that I'm like the purveyor of authenticity, but I shared that because I know that there's people that are in that same position, and there's not that many people just openly and honestly saying, this is rough, and actually I cried today. So I say all that to say, I definitely see the difference between trying to connect with where people are at, and being vulnerable and being authentic, and the difference between doing it specifically because you are, as you said, trying to get in people's pocket. Mm-hmm.
I learned a little bit about this, and I got more comfortable with this after two specific incidences. One, I did a disc training when I lived in the Netherlands, and the guy that was doing the training, he was so vulnerable. He was so transparent, and it made me feel so uncomfortable. Like, really, dude, this is not what I came here for, right? The red in me, the dominant in me was like, no, dude, this is not what I'm here for. You can have a kumbaya moment with your psychologist. I don't need to hear this. Can we get down to the meat and potatoes of this thing? And I went to him, and I was aware that I was so upset. So I went to him and I said, how could you be so vulnerable? Like, you don't know anyone here. You're just sharing your whole personal lifestyle. And he was like, you know, it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable. And I went outside and I cried because I was like, he's all right. I'm not courageous. That's why I was so upset. You know, like I had my moment. And then I came across Brené Brown, her TED Talk on the power of vulnerability.
I love that.
And I was like, okay, here's this word again, you know, because for me it was a bad word. I'm an island girl. Like we aren't known for our vulnerability. That's not what we're known for. You don't tell people your business. You keep everything behind closed doors. And so, but when I heard her TED Talk, I had to do a real good self-assessment. And I'm like, Ife, the way that we're going to live this life, we only have one. You might as well embrace all of it. And so for you doing that, and even sharing it with me before we got on here, it takes courage to say those stories. It takes courage to share with the world that we don't all have it together, and it's okay that we don't all have it together. I mean, I know I look cute and I'm all prepared for this because I'm coming to see you, and she's the boss international, so I have to come correct. But this week alone, we had to make some tough decisions. Me and a good girlfriend of mine, we were like, girl, we need some alcohol. We need some wine. It's been rough this week because of, COVID and having to make certain decisions in life. And so for those that are listening to this, it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to say it. And so I applaud you as well for being so transparent and vulnerable.
Thank you. You said it's okay not to be okay, and I started singing a song in my head. This is the problem. It's a blessing and a curse. Music is my soul, but sometimes the music doesn't work for me. I need the soca. It's been really good talking to you. 3 pieces of advice that you would give to somebody sitting at home that's thinking of starting a business or in the early stages of running their business.
Business is not about money. Business is about a vehicle to live your best life. And the minute that you understand that, then the money becomes part of the process, but it's not the measuring stick of who you are as a person. And so based on that, trust God or the most high power, trust something that's bigger than yourself, trust yourself because you are enough. The fact that you have air in your body and you are able to even think about being an entrepreneur means that you have what it takes to make it a reality. And then the most difficult part for most entrepreneurs, trust the process, because you will never, ever, ever be able to predict all of the side curves and all of the things that may happen. And so you have to trust the process, trust that you are able and adaptable to navigate through the process, to pivot in the process, trust yourself and the process enough to know when to walk away, and be authentic in the process. And that will get you so much success by itself, because you will attract all the people, all the resources that will take you to the next level.
She's the Boss recommends a book, podcast, or any other form of media that you want to share with our audience that's had an impact on your entrepreneurial journey or your life.
Okay, so I'm going to give you 3 books and I'm going to give you 1 podcast.
Awesome.
So 3 books, the Bible, Proverbs, especially if you're into business, you can get it in the NLT version, NIV version, amplified version. It doesn't have to say, "Thou sayest," but there are some truth bombs in that book that will change your life. And it has definitely changed mine. The second book is Built to Last. It's a follow-up from Good to Great. Jim Collins, I think, is one of the co-authors. It is a fascinating book because it doesn't talk about just being a visionary entrepreneur. It talks about building a visionary company. And it's based on some scientific research and some of the gems in there. One that I live by is a mythbuster. There was a mythbuster of the tyranny of or the genius of and. So we think that we have to be a mother or an entrepreneur or a daughter and actually, when you find that genius of and, when you find that sweet spot where you can do both, that's where the magic happens. That's where the innovation happens. And so you can be profitable and have purpose, for example, right? And then the last book is Blue Ocean Shift, which is the follow-up to Blue Ocean Strategy. Amazing.
Oh, I love Blue Ocean Strategy. I haven't seen Blue Ocean Shift. I'm going to add that to the list immediately.
Where is it? Do I have it close by? No, I don't. I don't have it close by, so I'm not going to get up. But no, I don't have it close by. I have books all around me here. I'm looking. No, I don't have it close by. But Blue is really powerful because it gets more practical in how do you make that shift. And also what I love about it is how do you create value in the market and how do you create market value? So as we're innovators, right, that is where the sweet spot is, because it's not about going into a red ocean competitive mode. It's about making competition irrelevant because you're providing such extraordinary value, and they give really good insight from a practical perspective of how to do that. So that's why I love me some Blue Ocean Shift. So those are the 3 books that I highly recommend. The podcast that I am recommending is actually from a good friend of mine. Several of them are doing amazing things, but Entrepreneurial You from Henneke Porter Watkins. She's based out of Jamaica.
Okay.
Yes, that's my girl.
Okay.
That's my girl. I was just messaging you.
The hookup, please. I'm trying to get her on. Please give me the hookup.
It's amazing. Has been doing podcasts for such a long time before the Caribbean even knew what a podcast was. Really, she has a book out, The Power of Podcasts, and she's just a brilliant person. And from the perspective of transparent and authentic, she's also shared her authentic truth and story, and she just has an amazing story of resilience and coming back literally from death's door recently. So Henneke Watkins Porter is a dear friend of mine. Shout out to her. But the Entrepreneurial You, she has interviewed Seth Godin, Lisa Nichols, and all of these amazing business leaders in all kinds of spaces. And she has one of the top rated podcasts for entrepreneurs in the world. So I'm very proud of her. She's out of Jamaica too. So, you know, my island sister.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. If people want to find out more about you, about your business, what platforms are you on? What's your website? How can they find out more?
You can find out about my business on experiencepwr.com. There you get to know more about what we do from a professional standpoint. I am all over the internet. So you can be on LinkedIn, Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. I'm more of a LinkedIn and Facebook person, to be quite honest, but I'm doing better. My 2021 goals, I realized that I'm more in those other platforms. And Ife Badejo, you can find me there.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been fabulous speaking to you. Definitely. I want to keep in touch.
I was saying you're more than welcome, and thank you so much for having me. I'm watching you too. I love the boss moves that you're making. And so, it's a true honor to be on your podcast and to just share my story with your audience. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I really loved every minute of it. So thank you. And thank you guys, as usual, for listening, for watching. If there's anything that Ife has shared that has really resonated with you, please write a comment. If there's anyone in your network that you think can benefit from hearing this conversation, please make sure you share. And as usual, please press that like button and subscribe so that you do not miss when I release a new interview. And I'll be back next week, Sunday, with another female entrepreneur story. So make sure that you set your reminders so that you can be the first to watch.